Scratch your eyes.
Well, good evening, everybody. This may be, should you wish, this could be quite a short appearance. I mean, let's face it, we did one on Saturday at Spaces. We did one yesterday because we sacked the manager. And today we've got the end of the transfer window. And tomorrow we've got a game at Hull, unless they find some ice within basically a quarter mile of the stadium, presumably. Yes, we will keep being this pernickety about it. So, end of the transfer window today. How has it been? What do people think? Well, there is an opportunity to give a 5-word review, should you wish to. Should you wish to, or should you wish to ignore it? That's also perfectly fine as well. Carl Campion says, Goglichidze, I'm gonna murder this name. Goglichidze worth 28 in Scrabble, he says. Now, I've got no idea if that's correct, but it sounds a jolly good thing if it is. For anybody who hasn't caught up today, but I'm sure you have, as ever, if you want to say what you think about this particular window or everything else that's been going on, then feel free. Put your comments in the in the normal places, if you will. You can reply to this. You can do whatever you want. And just let us know your thinking, really. The most important thing, I think, of all is that, yes, I'm wearing a different jumper this time because I wore the same jumper 2 in a row and I got called out. So, yes, Milchman has said, blimey, Pete, I've seen more of you over the last couple of days than I've seen her indoors. Well, why are you worrying about my wife? I've got no idea. Oh, your one. Oh, yes. No, that's not good, is it? Never mind. Well, look, we have brought some people in. There have been a number of things over the last week that have been said. So, for example, Valon Barami turned around while sat next to, a certain manager who is no longer with us, a certain manager who is no longer there, Javi Gracia, and said, yes, he thought that we would end stronger than we went into January with. Have we done that by the skin of their teeth? I think most people are looking at this January as we've looked at previous Januaries and gone, meh, to be quite frank. It's not, it's an odd one. So we're going to go through the 4 players that we've brought in, and already tonight, I can't remember if it was Paul or if it was Jason. Sorry, guys, on the on our Telegram group, made a point that before the late confirmation of Enqua coming in, he said, well, at the moment we've signed 3 players with a combined total games this season of 9. If we bring the next one in, it'll be 4 with a combined total of 9. Does that make us stronger at the end of January than it does at the start? Well, you can be the judge. However, people have departed, and I think it's worthwhile mentioning a few here, because the much derided James Morris, who I think got stick above and beyond anything that he was, you kind of could reasonably expect. Here we had a player who I think came in and did good service for the club. He was always a contingency player. He was never a first choice. There was a little run under Cleves when he almost more or less made that left-sided centre-back spot his own and was really, looking to maybe push on. It never happened for him. Some people will say he was never at a championship level, and that now he might have found a spot at Leyton Orient. Whatever, James, thank you for your service, and thank you ever so much, and good luck with where, with the career at Leyton Orient and obviously beyond. Today we did post up, and again, this is definitely one for Jason, it's the end for both myself and Rich WFC too, being able to muller poor old Musa Sissoko's name, or Musa Sissoko. He's finally gone off, as we know, to Panathinaikos, which is something that inexplicably I can pronounce, but I mean, I'm not going to be so hypocritical as to say what I think about him, because I thought, frankly, he was a fucking disgrace. And I have never been more glad to see a player depart the club. Contentious, maybe, but I'll tell you how I feel about him, and that's how I feel about him. I think he's been divisive. I think he's gone behind managers' backs and said a number of things to a number of people, and a number of those being agents. And I think you probably know who I'm talking about there. Yeah. Not one of the good ones as far as I'm concerned. He's gone, and good luck to him. I'm not gonna kind of, we're not going to worry about him. He's gone. But who has come in? Who else has come in today? Well, the last one we mentioned there, Pierre Enqua. Pierre Enqua has just been signed from Sunderland. No, not from Sunderland. Sorry, he was at Sunderland. People will know he was at Sunderland. He's been signed on loan from St Etienne, which is where he moved from Sunderland. And people were talking about various bits and bobs in terms of what they thought of him. Now, the reason I say Sunderland is because I asked our good friend Ant. You might remember him from the Christmas special if you listened, all the various things when we play Sunderland. Ant's a lovely bloke. And I said, what's he like?
He's all right. He can either be really, really good or really, really bad. Like when we signed him, he was really, really bad. But then when we went to playoffs in the first time on the Mowbray, he was probably our best player for like 6-7 games. He was unreal. And then he started really well, like the season after, got injured, and then we never really seen him play well again. And then obviously he went out to France, and we got like a good loan fee and a fee for him. So yeah, he's got something. Like he's not like shit, but he's just like he just needs to find his feet very, very quickly. And he's a very lazy player. You know, it looks like he's like it's going a little bit too easy for him. It looks as if he's lazy, but he is very if he gives himself a kick up the arse, he'll be a fantastic footballer. But best of luck anyway. I'm sorry I put the hex on your promotion battle. Ever since I said you was getting the playoffs, don't you won again? So, and sorry about the gaffer leaving as well. I'll see you soon, mate. Love you, bye.
Top man there. For anybody who didn't catch that, basically he said he can be good, he can be bad. He's not shit. I mean, high praise indeed, really. He can be lazy, and if he gives himself a kick up the arse, he could be a decent player. He also described it as saying sometimes the game looks like it's just too easy for him on occasion. So, look, there he is. He's come in. Some of his background, just thought we'd kind of go through a few bits in terms of where these guys have been. So he's played, he grew out of the Chelsea academy into the West Ham academy, and he's kind of roughly come down the layers of teams, as is quite often the case with those youth players at top tier clubs. They will kind of find their level. Think Nathaniel Chalobah, somebody else we'll mention later on. He made his way to Sunderland, and he did do some reasonable stuff there, as he said. And then he got a move out to St Etienne. They got a loan fee, and then they got a transfer fee for him. The competitions that he's played in, he's played 54 games in the Championship. We just wanted to go to this because one of the things we always say is about Championship-ready players. Not necessarily, but he's got Championship experience. That's something, at least. He knows something around it. Premier League 2 is obviously the Premier League reserve team, the Premier League Reserve League. Ligue 1, he's played in under 18s and various other kind of cup competitions. Doesn't really, he's looking like a 1 in 10 in terms of kind of goal scoring charts and details. And in terms of where he's actually played, if we look at this, he's primarily been 112 games in defensive midfield. That's exactly where he's going to be. With the news about Hector Cipriano, I've been told he's got a fractured ankle, which will see him out for the best part of the season. So whether or not that happens, we'll see. But he's played 10 odd games at centre back, which again gives us a bit of versatility. We know what's happened with this particular squad. We've been talking about coverage when players are knackered. What can people do? Where can they play? He's also played about 16 games in central midfield. That's in the various leagues and the various different places. So not all at the top flight, or not all in the Championship, but he's got a little bit of versatility, potentially in game or during the game, where somebody's got to push on a little bit or push back, or where can he go? We'll see a little bit more about that in a bit, but it's going to give us something to consider, maybe. So he has been bought in, and he was one of the reasons. His signing happened after 7 o'clock, because between 7 and 9 o'clock were when these deal sheets needed to be submitted by. So whether or not that really means that they can get it in at 7:10, the suggestion was it had to be signed by 7 and then get it in by 9. It seems to have been officially confirmed. He is ours. If you saw anything from Dan Gosling today, who on a number of occasions, by the way, I've described as Ryan Gosling, and I know how wrong that is. But hey, when you're at my age, I'm just happy if I'm wearing trousers, frankly, let alone pronouncing names of players correctly. Dan Gosling had come out and said, yeah, we'd asked to see if there was a chance of getting a midfielder. We don't know if we got that across the line. it looks as though they have done. Now, there's an interesting dynamic with the transfer window on deadline day. You can have an absolutely shit window, but if you do something at the end, then everybody's like, oh, there's something, we've got something across the line. I think we need to take a look at this along the lines of Alan Barami. Are we weaker or stronger for what we've done? So let's have a look. Let's have a further look. Let's get to another player who's come in, and I think I look at it and I feel about him as a replacement for James Morris directly. Possibly got a much higher ceiling, much younger still. But Stephen Mafuni has come in. We know he was on the bench the other day, and he's there. But we just thought we'd have a little look at what he brings. Again, lots of stuff at Man City, as you can imagine. He's come all the way through the ranks there. He's played 31 under 18, 28 under 21 games, youth level, and he's played a single game where he's come on for the first team. This is not somebody where we are bringing in anybody with experience. He is at Watford to gain experience. That's fundamentally what he is coming in for. So let's have a look at the kind of competitions he's been in. Well, it's exactly as we were mentioning there earlier on, kind of EFL trophy, UEFA Youth League, because he's played in, and we'll get to, he's played at almost every level from about under 14 up to under 19 at the moment, England appearances. He has got pedigree all the way through, which is encouraging. And one of the things that has been said was that we needed cover for left back. Yes, he has played cover at left back. So about a quarter of his games have been at left back. 50 of them have been at centre back. And then another 16 have been at left back. And he's also kind of played in defensive midfield. So it does look like he can do, we would hope, the job that James Morris has done, which is possibly, are we going to throw him in straight away? Maybe not. Have we maybe got the next Nathaniel Chalobah? See, I told you I was going to come back to him, who we bought in from Chelsea at the age of 17 and went, wow, look at what we've got here. Will he do that? I don't know. We might have somebody really good. We might have somebody who's needing to, kind of really take the next steps, or the really early kind of baby steps into what he's doing. But we'll see. He's here, the quid pro quo with Man City is he's here in order to get that experience. It does say one thing, which is, Pep Guardiola did come out and thank Petzolano as well, because Alain played under Petzolano and also now Javi Gracia. So there you go. If Pep says something nice to you, probably chances are you're on your way out of Vicarage Road at any given go. But he said thank you for it. So there is a belief that we as a club have done something reasonable in terms of the development of top teams, in this case Man City's youngsters. And in the case of Alain leaving us, we've done the hardest thing, which is give him first team football, get him developed, and get him to play in the first team. The number of youth players and development players who come through at these clubs who never see anything like the level of play that he's had. He's been in the FA Cup. He's played in the Champions League. I think yes, of course he did, because he was out there. He didn't have the greatest of times of it, let's be honest, in Norway at Bodo Glimt, and he's played in the Premier League. That's a big tick for us. And if we look at previous seasons, frankly, we've been a fucking awful club to put development players to. Think about the young Ed Garner, who we bought in from Man United, and he's now obviously with Everton, having gone from there to. Prior to that, he was at Forest, wasn't he? And you think we didn't really do that much great work with him there. He was kind of didn't get much time. He's done that. I think this we hopefully will be seen a lot better. Let's have a look at the last bits on Mafuni. Yeah, there we are. Under 16, under 17, under 18, and under 19 England cap. So he's got good pedigree. He's come through, the ranks at Man City. Probably at this moment in time, one of the best stables of players coming through, and he is considered basically to have a higher ceiling than Max Alain. Does that mean he's there now? No, not necessarily whatsoever. But all we need to do is, I think, really try and support this young man as best we can. He might make mistakes because he's going into a whole new, kind of adult football, and we'll see how he copes with that. But there we go. Let's get on to the one that will basically what can only be described as Derek Payne's nightmare. Yes, Yes, Saba Gogliachidze. He's been mooted to come in for a long time in this window, and we got wind of it, and that this was happening, and then it sort of nothing happened. And one of the questions was, why hasn't he come in? Well, if you read the Watford Observer statement, he was basically offered, and he was one of the players, according to the Watford Observer, who was offered to Javi Gracia, and he turned him down. Now, I've had conversations and I've had that confirmed that is absolutely the case. He is a player who Javi was not wasn't bringing him in, but now he's not here. They brought him in because they need bodies, quite frankly. He was, however, due to come in without Javi going, because all of the other options, they're gone. All of the other ones that they were looking at had gone and gone. But of course, Gogliachidze being at Udinese was still available. So there you go. We didn't want him. Then he went, okay, well, if there's nobody else, we will have him. But then he's left, and now he's here. So again, kind of what has he done? He had a really good season at Empoli when he moved from Georgia. He had a very, very good season. A lot of good clubs in Serie A were looking at him, and Udinese got in and nabbed him. And he's had what can only be described as a what's the phrase? Semi-foremost Mendy season, I would say. He's had 9 games, but not a lot else. And so you can see why they've decided they're going to move him to us. I've seen a number of people say, well, if Christian Kabasele is in front of you, then how good can he be? When I've looked at him, he is normally playing on the right. He has played, positionally, as we'll go here, right back a number of times. So 54 times at centre back, 12 times at right back, and 3 at left back. So maybe a little bit of coverage, but he's certainly not going to be a starter at left back, I wouldn't suggest in any way, shape or form. But he looks predominantly right-footed. However, in the footage that I was looking at, this was at the start of the January, he can pass a ball. He can seemingly pass a ball. And when we suddenly lost a lane and everyone went, well, we can't break the lines now, we can't pass out from under a press, he might be able to do it, but he's not necessarily left-sided, which is obviously what we wanted. Unlike Mafuni, who absolutely is, better on his left. So we will see where that goes. The competitions that Gogliachidze has played in is obviously a lot of Serie A and a lot in the Georgian, First Division, which we'll know all about from Xisco Munoz, of course. So how good is he going to be? We'll really wait and see. If you look at anybody's show reel, which is a shortened version, obviously, of kind of their good bits, so to speak, it's like looking at Brazilian strikers, and you look at them for 20 minutes and you go, my God, look, they've scored 100 goals. That's because they don't put the 500 clips where they go past the player and balloon it into the stand, or the Andre Gray roll, as they would normally call it. So it's always going to look much more in his favor than anything else, because they'll take the blooper reel out and just leave the good bits in. But he's got a decent pass. He's quite sturdy. One of the things that we're saying was he needs to bring consistency and a bit of focus into his game. Well, you're coming in to play now first team football in England. This is an opportunity to do it. Obviously, we've got the younger lad who was out on loan at Charleroi, who we brought in, who was also Georgian. Can't remember his name for a moment. Begins with an M, but frankly, I'm struggling under the weight of the Derek Payne-ness of all of this. So we've got him, we've got Georgie, and now we've got Gogliachidze Saba there as well. So we've got a little Georgian enclave, which hopefully will make each one of those feel a little bit more at home and a little less, kind of not paranoid, but just feel more at home at the club. So we've got that. So we will see how they go. And finally, I am going to do it, even though you've had, let's face it, you've had Eduardo Bove thrust down your throat with everything that the club have put out. Has it been overkill? Has it been hyperbole? I don't know. I don't think so. This lad is a class act. Everything that's been reported back to me, and fed back to me, is that he is fitter than they imagined, because he's been looking after himself. This is the guy, obviously, as you all know, with the IED, the pacemaker that is fitted basically in his chest. just to make sure that if he had a recurrence of a heart attack and his heart stopped, it starts him off again. Now, the two main cases, and we have kind of spoken about this, but I'll touch on them again. The two main cases that people will know about who have had this particular instance on a football field have been Tom Lockyer of Luton Town when they were in the playoff final, yes, and that happened to him, which is a horrendous thing for him, a horrendous thing for his family and everybody in football at the time, you know. And then when it was repeated again at Bournemouth later on the following season, all the good wishes in the world, rivalry and all of that rubbish goes aside at that particular point. He did not have one of these IED devices fitted in his chest when he was playing against Bournemouth. It hadn't been done for whatever reasons, I don't know, but it hadn't been done. The reason why he has to play outside of Italy now is because of this device. And a number of people, and I understand it completely, feel a great deal of discomfort thinking they're watching a match with a young lad, he's only 23, running around on the pitch, who could at some point lose his life from an identified existing condition. Obviously, this is there to prevent loss of life. Not saying it can never happen again, because anybody's heart at some point is going to stop, right? But obviously, he's got a pre-existing condition. The Italian law on this, and it's an odd one, and I did a lot of research into it, is the fact that Italian sport and Italian sports medicine, shall we say, consider that such a device, such an implant, is not conducive with performance sport. Not that he's had a heart attack, it's the device itself that is there to save his life if there is a recurrence. That the device itself is not conducive with performance sport. If he did have it taken out, he could go back and play in Italy, and there's nothing within the laws of the game or the laws of the federation there that would actually stop him, which is kind of a bit crazy, if you ask me, because actually the big problem with this isn't the device. The big problem is the underlying condition. The device is there to help him with that, but they think that it's not there. Anyway, you go around all of the countries in Europe and almost every other federation of football, etc., and sport, you know, in a wider sporting context, take it on a case-by-case basis. My understanding is that wherever Eduardo Bove is playing or training, there is a paramedic on hand. So he is in literally the best possible position for it to happen. You know, if something happens, he's in the best, he's in the absolute best position. He's obviously in the peak of fitness as much as you can be, because he's been training with Roma. He's in very, very good physical condition as we understand it, and we will wait to see when we find it. Now, people will be thinking quite rightly, there is a difference between match fitness and match kind of physical output than there is in training, which is a controlled environment. Even at the most blistering pace, it's still a controlled environment. So when he goes into a game, is somebody going to try and rattle him or shake him up? Well, it's not like a knee injury. It's not like when they'll go in and say, well, you know, he might still be feeling his leg, go in and give him a reducer or anything like that. So we'll see. As a player, the guy is class, and his behaviors have been exemplary. He was down at the fan zone the other day, and there was a line, as you know, all the way down there for the kids to come do that, and he was smiling, signing stuff, all the things that you would think that a senior pro would want to do, but he volunteered to do it. He wanted to do it. He wants to introduce himself. He wants to be part of it. His English, not that that's always a consideration, but in terms of integrating with a group, with a team, with a club, is excellent. Absolutely, it is, which is fantastic. Let's have a look at where he's been playing. Obviously, he's been playing at Roma. He is an absolute idol of the Curva. Is it the Curva Nord? I can never remember if it's the Curva Nord or the Curva Sud. The one is Lazio and one is Roma, depending on where they're playing. Excuse me. 92 games. Not a lot of goals in his Roma days. He played mostly under Jose Mourinho, who described him and gave him the phrase, it sounds a little bit bad in English, it's not really meant it, but he called him a sick dog. And the idea of a sick dog is that it'll run all day, but it won't shut up. And he was like, you know, yappy dog, constantly at the opposition was what he meant, not obviously a forerunner of what was coming. So he was playing ever so well, but he was very much in the Mourinho camp, and he mentioned Mourinho on one of the club pieces that he did in terms of being the best coach. He given him certainly the most games. With the change with Mourinho going out, he seemed to lose his position certainly within the team, within the coaching situation, and basically went off on loan with a view to buy to Fiorentina. They absolutely loved him. Absolutely loved him. Only 15 games in, and then obviously that fateful moment. But of course, Fiorentina is in Italy. So, here he is. He said about, look, this isn't about a second choice, coming to Watford. I want to be here. I want to get on board. He's saying everything that you would want to see. I did hear a story, and I don't know how true it is, but a number of people at the training ground were really impressed with how humble he is, and how some of the things that he does, they hope rub off on other players, because he's got a good head on his shoulders, which is excellent. The games, obviously, primarily it's going to be Serie A, a number of Primavera games, which are again the Italian sort of reserve outlet, Europa League games, because as you will all know from when he was in Jose Mourinho does well in Europe, doesn't he? And he had a big long run in the Europa League and various other bits and bobs. But if you look through his games, a lot of goals when he was under 17. So he's a box-to-box player. He describes himself as, he describes his best component, or the best component of his game, as his positioning. So he's one of those players who will be probably starting from deep when out of possession. And if you watch his reel, if you watch his show reel, he basically gets about and is in your face and is high intensity, wins the ball and then pushes on and drives you on. Something that actually we could really do with. The idea of having a Kyprianou next to a smaller, but still sort of slightly look-alikey in Bove, and then maybe having, a loser in front of them in a bit more of a freer role, maybe. That feels really like something, because you win the ball and then you've got somebody with a natural energy to burst forward, and you've already got loser there to be able to retain the ball, keep it, thread it, give it, and you've got willing runners. That could be really quite something. And I think of all the things, I can understand why the club have made such a big thing of this. Across all of those games, unsurprisingly, really, because there's quite a lot of games and there's a lot in there which are in youth development, but he's played all around the midfield. But primarily, he is that box-to-box individual. He will go wherever it takes. And he's also very, very tactically astute and aware. He will go and do what is being asked of him. Now, bearing in mind, again, if you go back to what's been suggested from Javi, who was less than pleased when asked about Bove, seemingly, but I think it was more a question of, he's not asked for this. He's not asked for somebody with Bove's profile. He wanted something else, but the club have said, this isn't what you needed. This is what you've got. Okay. He is tactically very aware. One of the things that has been leveled, obviously, at Bar and at Irankunda was that their level of tactical understanding, appreciation, sophistication, being able to take on tactical understanding, basically track back. I mean, I think it's more to do with, I don't want to do that. I'm an attacking player, personally, but he is very, very understanding of what's happening tactically. Serie A is a hugely tactical league. They really work out how they're going to play one another. It's not so physical. And therefore, he's going to have to get used to that physicality. But he's played enough in Europe, I'm sure, to know what he's doing. And he's got an engine. So we will see where he goes. So there we go. I thought I'd just kind of ping through those. Anybody wants to request or say anything, do hit the request button and let me know. If you don't, that's fine. There's a quick update there. Today we had we've had a few little radio stints just to talk about Javi going out. And if you want to reflect on that, you're more than welcome to. If not, we will call it an end of a day, because it's been, let's face it, a long old weekend of Twitter Spaces and talking about this. Are we stronger or are we weaker? If I look at it, I don't think we're significantly stronger. You're not significantly stronger if you're bringing in 4 players who've had 9 performances. Tuck that thumb away in this season. That means they're not match ready at this moment in time. Now, you can, if you wish, look at Mafuni and say, well, no, he's played more than that because he's been playing in the Premier League 2, for example, which is, they've described him and said he's playing 2 age groups above. So he might be, he's fit and ready. Great. Okay. But he hasn't played senior first team football for that. So I think that's a struggle. But Mafuni, ironically, I think is one of the ones who is absolutely most fit and ready to go. I think Bove is really, he is genuinely the ace in the hole if it works. But this is a risk that the club are taking on, and they're taking it on from a risk profile. Nobody looked at, during the Euros, nobody looked at Christian Eriksen, who's the other well-known player to have gone down with this, and gone, well, I wonder if we could sign him at that point, because you wouldn't want to be in that situation in the crowd watching the game on the TV, as so many people did when Christian Eriksen, playing for Denmark in the Euros, went down. It's a horrific thought. You don't want that. We all know how it is when somebody in the crowd suffers from a medical emergency and the game's paused. Even worse still when somebody's there. Nobody wants that. However, and this will sound despicable on my part, if it works, holy hell, what a coup. What a coup potentially we have on our hands. Now, in terms of the recruitment overall, and I think if we look back and say about Yavi, for me, Yavi has left because he's fed up of having internal hurdles as well as external ones. He should be preparing for the battle with the opposition, other teams, played, and I think he was fed up of battling internally of that. You only have to look, and we've mentioned this already, but in case you hadn't heard it, my ongoing waffle about this. How many times we've talked about why do we have this fall off after January? Well, when we got to speak to Troy Deeney now 2-3 years ago even, and we asked him explicitly about this, he said, well, there's nothing said, but this was about the Premier League. But, we'd get to the, near or thereabouts. And then, we sort of stopped a little bit. It kind of happened. But in the subsequent years there, it's come on the back end of the January transfer window. Now, you imagine that you are Valérien Ismaël or you're Tom Cleverley. And we went and had a chat with Tom Cleverley last year. And he said, no, this is everything I wanted. This is everything I wanted. And we came out at the end of that, and Justin Carl and I had a little bit that we recorded on the end that many people didn't listen to. And I can understand why. Why would you want to listen to us idiots talking? I get that completely. And we said, did you believe it? And I said, no, because the moment you put a microphone in somebody's face at the club, they will be on that PR watch. They'll be, realizing this isn't just a conversation with you and me. This is me being asked for public consumption. So it's always going to have a certain level of sanitized. Because if you went to Tom Cleverley last year and said, would you have liked Ronaldo? Of course, the answer would be yes. Of course it would. But he got what he got. I think the issue has been you've had people like Ismaël who wanted certain players and got offered certain other players and turned them down. Now, with Javi, whilst it's been a different club that he's come back to with different kinds of players, and supposedly the Championship was a little bit more eye-opening because he didn't think he had the players that he'd have to kind of come down to their level in order to drag them up and didn't want to and what have you. Even if that is the case, he knew what the situation was with the club with regards to this is very much, it shouldn't come as a surprise to him that, you have a technical department. That's exactly what they have in Spain. That's exactly what they have in a whole host of countries that he's played in, including Russia, for example. You don't just get to say, that's who I want, and then you get it. Those days in the 1980s, as much as I may wish upon a star that they would come back, aren't going to happen. You now are looking at a far more American/European model. If you look at the American way of doing sport, a general manager is the one who basically fills the roster of players. The head coach coaches. It's horrible. It's hard, cold, and mechanical. And I can't tell you how much I dislike it, because I would much rather have the man who is trying to put whatever it is he is trying to put together in the middle of that conversation. And every time we hear about it, that's what it's supposed to be. That never plays out over January. What it is no, we know you want that player, but you're not having him. And that might be a reasonable thing. That player might not be available. That player might not want to come. That player might not be affordable. But this is the player you're getting. And we basically end up with the manager and the technical department, or the owner, or the CEO, or whoever's doing it, or Gianluca Nani, and they do this. We saw it with Ismail. I think we saw it with Cleverley, most certainly, despite what was said last year. And we've absolutely seen it this time with Javi. Fundamentally, it shouldn't be. There was a descriptive term in the Watford Observer thing that I thankfully think was damning on the club, and actually, frankly, damning on the Watford Observer, which was, these were issues that it was believed that he would have coped with better in 2019. If he hadn't been 55, he'd have been younger and able to deal with it. Well, frankly, technical staff, team, club, you are there to support the manager. However you do it. It's not about your ego. It's about the manager getting the component parts and working together with him to give him what he needs to try to get there. And we can look at it and go, oh, Javi wasn't the right one. Well, I sat down opposite Gino Pozzo in June of 2023 and asked the question about, I happened to be the one hosting it, but everybody there was John from the Rookery End, everybody who got involved with that. But I put the question, which was, to lose one, manager seems maybe careless. To lose 20 odd at that time, or however many it was, seems downright ridiculous. And the answer was constantly, we've got everything here. We've got everything in place. The only thing we haven't got is the right coach, the right manager. And I think you have to look at that and say, there is only one common denominator through all of those January transfer windows, because the players have rotated. The head coach or manager, or whatever you want to call him, has rotated. But it doesn't matter whether or not you're looking back at Ranieri or Hodgson. Nobody ever comes out of Watford and says, yeah, I was given the support for the players that were needed. Hodgson was coming out almost at the start of everything. And I appreciate we, bombard him and do cream tea jokes and all sorts of stuff. But he came out and was already making barbed remarks before even a player had played for him. Because he turned around and said, well, we'll see whether or not these players are as good as I am told they are. And you could already hear the cynicism in his voice. And he's not the first and he's not the last. And, to bring back Javi Gracia, who plays in a certain style, who plays in a certain way, seems odd. It seems off. What you need to do with that manager is give him, as the way he's going to play, you need to give him a squad that's going to play in that particular way, or at least you need to work towards that squad, instead of saying, well, we brought you in, but you don't play with, you don't play with wingers. Here you go. Here's 6 wingers. Good luck with them. Doesn't really work. So anyway, there we go. Let's quickly get through some of these 5 words and some of the lovely comments in the window that's been put in here, and then we can let you lovely people head on off. Georgie Chat for Dancer. You see how easy it is to do that. Goglia Chidze, worth 28 in Scrabble. Get it on a triple word, said Justin. I like that. Harry said, not bad if we had a pre-season. And of course, if everybody was fit. I mean, theoretically, if 2 have gone today and we've brought in 4 over the time, well, there's been other people who've gone as well. Obviously, we've got Dan Backman back. Milky Nutkin says, strengthened. We have not. Surprise. I think there's an argument to say we have, and I think there is a very, very strong argument to say we have not. How can you be doing that when you've got 9 players in? Uncle Ron will be delighted, says Dictum Aggravator. Dictum Aggravator. I'll get it there somewhere. He also says, not a great adjustment, really. No, it's not really. Simon Parkins says, judge on the pitch, not Twitter. Well said. Well said indeed. That's very true. And I think you've got to look at them. And the last bit I was going to come to was you've got to also, we've got Charlie Daniels, we've got Dan Gosling, not Ryan, and of course we've got Watford club legend Adi Mariappa, and everybody's just going to get behind them because that's what you're there to do. It's not their fault. We're going to try and get behind them and judge the players on the pitch, judge these guys on the pitch as well, see how they do and hope for the best. Never heard of these signings. No, well, welcome to Watford. When have you ever? Carl Campion says, add to our exciting squad. Yeah, there has been I think again we come back to hyperbole. Not very good at all, says Tony Bailey. Gallen says not too shabby if everyone was fit. Well, I mean, if everyone was fit, including Bove, there's no way we would get him in any other circumstances like this. We just have to hope that he comes out and is the player as close to the player he was beforehand now, or he's got such a class bit about him that if he does have to, and I'm sure he will have to adjust his game, he's got the intelligence to do it and the technique and the capability. HMS mediocre mid-table depart, says Fake Farmer, like that. Jesse Hornet says a pile of post-box poo. Now, post boxes are something that we know what we do, and that's yes, it does involve poo, but I don't think we should say that in quite such a detrimental manner, Jesse. And you will see a video coming out about an emergency letterbox opening probably tomorrow on Twitter. See what I mean. Hornet 49 says young, inexperienced, not match fit. I think as 5 words go, that's probably as accurate as I can imagine. Taste the Biscuit 979 says piss poor usual Potso wank. We'll see. I don't think anybody knew who Matty Vidra was until we signed him, but there was an awful lot of other players who were indeed wank. Let's be honest. Ash Furby said new coach has already resigned. Yes, probably. Shouldn't wonder. We'll see who that. We'll get on to worrying about who that was. It was suggested to me earlier on that Russell Martin was number 3 in the list. Oh God, can you imagine? Ask me to pronounce Golichidze. Where's the problem, Gary? Where's the problem? Golichidze. I can pronounce that. Pronouncing Gary's difficult. I grant you that, but Golichidze, no problem. I don't know if that's accurate, by the way. I'm just trying to confidently style it out. New signings. Absolutely. Duomo, Petrus, and Mendy. I think the moment he went, these guys were suddenly, right, well, we can roll them back in. If they were going out and these 4 were coming in, there's no way we would have been considered being strengthened. Petrus is interesting. Because from what I've heard, he's come from Charleroi, but he might as well be Holebas. I don't think he knew very much about coming to Watford until it was done, basically. Now, if you think about who the owner is of Charleroi, well, let me give you a clue. The managing director is a guy called Mehdi Bayat. You can imagine who might be controlling that. So I can imagine he might be walking around with a face like a slapped arse, wondering what on earth he's doing on the M25 when he thought he was in Belgium. Duomo has been played around from one place to another. And when the midfield options, which now stack out to about 6, were listed by Adam Drury this evening, he didn't actually include Duomo. And then he went, well, and Duomo potentially, but he didn't seem convinced that he was necessarily going to be kept. And let's face it, Duomo has had a number of managers now. I mean, he came in under Cleverley. My understanding was Cleverley didn't even know who he was when he first signed, had to go and look up to work out what he'd actually got. Another player or another manager being given to a player that certainly hasn't asked for, but it was a good opportunity. Fine. Came in from Belgium, just saying. Petrus came in from Belgium. We know about Foremost Mendy. Maybe we will see him. He was described by Valon Barami as the number 1 defensive option and our target in the last transfer window. Will he get an option? We'll see. We'll wait and see what's going to happen with him. But the club seem to have tried to move heaven and earth to try to make sure that we've kept him in seemingly for long periods. Dan Harvey, madness, no striker brought in. That is absolutely for me the full weakness of the whole lot. Fat Jack says not enough to keep Yavi. Absolutely. He must have known what was going to be coming in, what was going to go out, whether some of those have stopped. I mean, is it coincidence that Duomo's personal, couldn't agree personal terms in Saudi? Just do the math on that for a moment. Couldn't agree personal terms to go to Saudi. Now, automatically, it'd be on 25 grand a week. Because if you look through the Pro League elements, there are very few European players who are on anything less than that. They're signing some real tat for good money. So that may have changed because he's got an opportunity. Maybe. I don't know. We will see. Let down in January yet again, says Guy Wellborn. I agree. It's underwhelming. Jason, Watford FC Finland says, improve the squad on balance. Jason, your positivity, sir, is something that I admire, albeit from a great distance, but because that's geographically where you are. HMS pissed the league sunk, says David Sweet. Well done indeed. So you look, all of those bits, let's get that there. Let's get through into some of the comments that that people have put on the YouTube and take it from there. Oh, John, you want to come in, sir? Let's have a look, see what your thoughts are. There we go. Now, normally with Mr. Parslow, we have Spinning Wheel of Doom, as you will all be familiar. John, are you there?
Hello, Peter. I think I'm here.
Victory. Yes, you're not dog walking or having problems with Bluetooth.
I got back. He kept talking, so I got back in time. So it was good.
There you go. There you go. What are your thoughts on everything, including Yavi or transfer fee or transfer windows or what have you?
Oh, you really don't want me to get on the Yavi stuff. Let's talk about the transfer bit, and then we'll see where it goes. Actually, I want to ask you. You like playing a few games on the opposition pod, so I want to give you a small task now, which I think will help the listeners understand what a squad is. So next Saturday we play Derby.
We do.
So most of the players, including the return of Duomo, Petri, and foremost Mendy back into the squad. So the argument from Barami is we have a stronger squad. So I get that. So assuming everybody's fit, except I guess Pollock's injured and Cipriano's injured, what is your team 1 to 10? Well, 2
1 to
10
10
because obviously Celtic's in goal, right?
That right.
So it's a bit like a reverse tenor ball, if you like. But name your team for Derby.
Well, we can't have Aaron Kunda. We can't have Aaron Kunda.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, because he's still on the naughty step. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So. Yeah. For me, I think you. There's been a lot about Barr being named as, basically how he's been treated. And I've seen various people, kind of free Barr and Aaron Kunda and all of that. Yeah, I'd start him, and I'd challenge him to go and be the attacking force that we know he can be. I'd ask him to go, get down the line, go at the player, be Adama Traore, that player that we saw last season who would just basically brush people off. Because at the moment he looks, unless there's something he hasn't recovered properly from his injuries, he is looking less than half the player that he did last season for me personally. So I start with that, but I play a 4-2-3-1 because a number of people have pointed out the moment that the AFCON came and we lost Kayembe, who slows everything down. Whenever we're breaking, whenever we're doing anything, Kayembe slows it down. I'm not taking him out as a squad member or anything like that or bad mouthing him, but his tempo is slow. However, we haven't got Cipriano, so suddenly we're looking at what are our options in terms of midfield. Because as I say, of all the players that we brought in the midfield today, we haven't got any who've played much. So let's go from I think you have to start with Ngakia and Bola. At this moment in time, because this is my fantasy and I'm not resting players because it's my one game. Selvik troubles me, frankly. However, I'm still starting with Selvik because I think Baxter is slightly below him, but I want to see a fit and confident Selvik come out. And frankly, when you are able to catch the fucking ball, because against Swansea, the number of second restarts that they had because he punched it when it was like, just take it, just claim it. The number of times he pushes it wide, and any decent keeper should be claiming that. I'd be asking the goalkeeper coach, frankly, why he's not catching the ball, because you've then got possession and you can start and you can kind of do something. Whereas we were consistently basically giving them the ball back. Enough of goalkeepers. You've got who we got? We've got a Banqua.
Who's centre backs? Yeah.
So we've got a Banqua and Kevin. I'd keep a Banqua. But a Banqua and Kevin just frightens the life out of me, simply because you can't have a player who for 10% of the time, for 90% of the time could be really, really good, but 10% of the time is frankly scary in terms of what he does and how he does it. So I would want to take him out. Got to think about who we've got available for that then. At the moment, you might even be looking at Mafuni, but I don't think you want to start with Mafuni, straight at the start of a game against, who would they be playing? Carlton Morris, holy hell. I'd see whether or not Foremost Mendy is potentially able to come back in. If he is, and if he's up for it, fine. If not, then I would go with Kevin, because just for the oh god, this is horrible. Carlton Morris bullied Pollock all over the place a couple of years back, didn't he, for Luton? Anyway, anytime we were up at their place, so it would be. I'd have to see exactly how they are and who they are, etc., rather than just on personalities. And so many of these players we have not seen and we do not know at this moment in time. In the midfield, what I would want to do ideally is have two players playing on the edge of the box as the midfield players, the deep midfield players. And I would personally like to get a loser as free as possible. I want him to have as free a role as possible. Ideally, for me, in behind the forward in that second line. So if you think about it, it's a 4-2-3-1. But if loser drops 10 yards, it's turning into a 4-3-3. If he pushes up,
sad actually. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and he's the one player who I would trust on the pitch to read the game and know where he's got to be in this particular instant, where to go and affect it. But I would want to have, as I said earlier on, the ideal for me would be Kyprianou, because we had a Kyprianou-sized hole on Saturday. As a defensive midfielder, he positions his body very, very well. He gets it. The problem is he then gives it to the opposition, very much like Hamza Chowdhury. Sorry, go on.
So he's injured, so he plays.
So in his place, who have we got? I don't think Mendy's done bad when he's been in, apart from obviously his height, but he's a bit like Iran Kunda in as much as he'll charge around and position for it. But I don't like having two little uns, and I do class loser as a little un, but you're going to have to play him in midfield at the moment, I suppose, from that particular scenario, because of fitness for everybody else. So
who are your two holding?
At the moment, you'd have to put in Mendy, and we'd have to see about the fitness of everybody else. I suppose in some ways I'd probably go Mendy right side, you've got to put in loser, because I'd rather put in loser there than even have KMB there and go with somebody else further up. My ideal, as I say, would be to release loser, possibly there, and I'd play definitely with Barr on the right side, and I would also go with Marma on the left hand side. I think he's done really, really well, and I'd go with Doumbia up front. I think Kiramgal looks he's played a lot. He's played a lot of games, and he looks a bit shy and short of it. And I don't think that Doumbia looks particularly great now, playing as a pseudo number 10 / going up. I don't think he knows when he's got to be somewhere, the kind of thing that I was just talking about loser knowing. I don't think he knows where he should be half the time. Whereas when he played up front, he knows he's got to anchor and be a pivot up front and play off of that. I think that would be where I would go. But
and who's in the 10 then? Behind Doumbia? You're missing one.
Well, the question is, do I play KMB in deep and play loser there, because I want my creativity further up the pitch than it currently is?
Did you trust KMB at the back? Was the ball to his feet?
This is the $64,000 question.
I'll put you out of your misery. The reason I asked this question, right? So that's the side, right?
Yep.
So we've just made loads of signings. So have we improved the team? We have no centre forward we still trust in that, which people have made. And
the forward line is the worst. Is the worst thing.
We're bringing Barr in and hoping that's now going to work, and we're still moving people around, and we're not sure that anybody we brought in is going to come in.
It's not a question of hoping it's going to work. What you have to do with any player is you have to challenge them. You have to find where their motivation lies, and Barr has been. You only had to see him the other day up at Blackburn. He was playing up. He was playing badly because, and I've heard some people describe him as like, a toddler having a hissy fit. Yeah, because he wants something. You've got to take the fact that he wants that and turn that into motivation. You've got to challenge him to actually produce something every single game. If we go back to, and I'm sorry, everybody, I'm going back to the dawn of GT. Graham Taylor used to charge both Nigel Callaghan and John Barnes with putting 10 crosses into the box every single game, because he was Graham Taylor was loved stats. He was absolutely beyond everybody in terms of being kind of futuristic about this sort of thing. And the guy who was de rigueur around the FA at that time, and he's been really blackballed for so long now because he was charged with being the architect of long ball, was a guy called Charles Hughes. He wrote all the FA manuals. When I was doing coaching, we all read Football Skills and Tactics by Charles Hughes, right? It's a fantastic book. It's brilliant. But he did work out that most goals are scored with 5 touches or less. Therefore, if we can get the ball forward as quickly as possible, we're more likely to score a goal. And it's kind of okay in terms of that pieces, but you can see how the game has developed and changed and is tactically far different now. However, Graham Taylor looked at it and went, right, what do we need in order to win games? And one of Charles Hughes' thing was, if you have 10 shots on goal, 9 times out of 10, you will win a game. So that was what he charged. That's why he wanted 20 balls delivered into the box. That's why he had Ross Jenkins to get on the end of the box. That's why he had Luther Blissett there to basically nod on anything and to get on the end and the sharpness of anything. It was a numbers game. And that's what you take and you put that equivalent, the modern equivalent, into Kwadwo Bar. I want you to get to the line. I want you to tug it back. You work out on phases of play where Kiramgard or Doumbia or whoever is going to be, when he gets to the line, that's where I want you to go. I want you to go to the near post and I want you to drag a man with you, because then you've got a chance you can either loft it, but most likely you'll cut it back. Who's arriving there for the cutbacks early in the season in a slightly freer role was Loser. And we'll all remember how he was scoring those goals from those cutbacks. That's what you do. You basically break it down to very small things that you're asking people to achieve to be able to get to that byline. He's got to receive it, he's got to turn, or he's got to have the ball played in behind the back line for them to run in on. And he's got to get to that line. All of that is taken as read. Then we need you to focus on the quality of the delivery. You do that, you've got half a chance. Sorry, I'm rambling on.
I'm just saying, because I agree Bar Mama should start. So does Ed Wigan not come in if we bought a player? And then you're just going to have to throw him in. I mean,
the question with all of these is the fitness and the readiness, and none of us know about that yet.
I mean, this is the problem, though. This is the problem with the transfer window, isn't it? Because of all the new players, I don't think apart from maybe bringing in Fumi, it's like, well, none of them are ready to start already. So what's that going to be? 3-4 weeks before they start playing? So it's a crap transfer window to when we've got injuries. And the one thing I would say about Taylor, the Taylor days, there were 2 players he brought in his run through. So when we went into Division 3, who was his first signing in Division when we went up from Division 4 to Division 3?
I remember he signed Wilf Rostron.
Record signing.
Steve Sims,
who played at centre back. The first thing he did was brought in there. When we were going up for the league, who did he bring in when we were banging all those crossing in? Who did he buy in to bring at the back?
When?
John McClellan.
Oh right, sorry, we've skipped forward from 1978. Yeah, go on.
The defence scares the hell out of me now, and I think so through the transfer window, and I think this was Javi's problem. Was look, with the changes, I want to strengthen that so I can release things forward. And Kevin and Banquo, so we're back again with that as our centre back pairing. It's scary.
The problem is we don't know how ready Foremost. We don't know how ready Foremost Mendy is, because he's had 150 minutes of football if he's lucky. I don't think he's even had that. So he has played a game and a half more than effectively Eduardo Bove. When will Eduardo Bove be ready? I don't know, because I don't know where they are in the preparation. If he is fit, and if everybody is fit in there, then I'll tell you who I'll take. Absolutely, I would be putting him in there because he has absolute proven class. The problem is with the other 3, we don't know enough about them. I've gone through with some statistics and where they've played and what they've done, but beyond that, we are not entirely sure. I think Goliachidze should be, one to be considered, but he's only played 7 games first team this season. And you go, okay, You haven't played much. Is he ready to go straight in? There is also the element around, and you mentioned, well, is it 4 weeks? Is it? No, I think you can introduce, providing you make it very simple. Yeah, you can introduce players in a lot quicker than I think we tend to. I think we tend to overly complicate that. But you're absolutely right. It's 1 or it's 2. I mean, ideally, it's 1 that you're going to bring in, because a centre-back's role is pretty much straightforward what they need to do. Stop it going in there, move it that way, right? Try and pass it to a yellow shirt, which, trust me, that would be a step up from last Saturday for many, many players. Giving it to a yellow shirt would be fundamental. So I think, yeah, if he's fit, then yes, but it all comes down to how fit, how ready are they to contribute from now until the final game in May. That's the ultimate thing. And that's not talking about promotion. That's not talking about anything. It's about how quickly can we get them ready and firing. If I'm playing loser at the back, then yeah, I might play Chak Fatadza to start, but I wouldn't hesitate to rip him off the park if he is not doing what I'm asking him to do. And I'm asking him to do not dissimilar, but in a different position, what I'm asking of Bar, which is you've got to get the ball, you've got to turn it, you've got to get it, turn it, and pass the ball forward. Yes, Sean Gawley, I'm using your reference for this. Get us moving up the pitch, open up opportunities, because his final ball is frankly appalling. He flatters to deceive constantly, but you turn it around. You say, look, this is where you are. That's what you've got to do. Can you do that? That's what I need you to focus on. Because if they do that as individuals and it works together as a collective, because you're giving them things to simplify the game for them, rather than asking them to, seemingly against Swansea, make it all off the cuff. That's how it appered all the time. Then that's what you'd be looking at and doing.
No, it's shocking. I mean, it's shocking on Saturday.
Yeah. And I might also, I don't know, I might put him in there. I might even put Tom Ince in and centre, because again, in the same way as I talked about Loser having the ability to drop in when he knows he needs to do it, I think I'd do that a lot. I think I might put him in and say, right, you're going to have a half. You're going to have a half. The only way you stay on is if you're outstanding. You challenge players. Players respond to gamification. It's a game. What do I need to do to be performing well in your eyes? And then they do tend to respond, because there's no, you can't threaten these players. That most of them are multi-millionaires. If you find them 2 weeks' wages, it's, well, I won't tell the wife because she'll have it in for me. But other than that, it has no consequence. So you've got to challenge them. Anyway, John.
Yeah. Pete, one quick last question. Are you okay if I send this into Gino for your job application for the new head coach?
Absolutely.
Because I don't think you could do any worse.
Frankly, warm praise indeed. No. It's a young man's game these days, and I think if you look at it, Charlie Daniels, Dan Gosling, and Adi Mariappa are all close enough to playing to be able to probably connect better with these younger players than Yavi can. I'm not saying he's a better coach. I'm not saying he's in a better position or anything bad about Yavi. You, as a coach or as a manager, you play whatever cards you've got. And if you're closer to their age, you play that empathetic card. He wasn't able to relate, or they didn't relate to him. Try and come and relate to me and understand what I'm asking you to do. One of the things was sort of saying the suggestion that these players are focused on their career and not focused on what their team is requiring, because they'll move on and they'll move out. That's fine. How do you think you get your next move? You get your next move by being in a team that works well. Now, I think fundamentally the regime has let down a number of these flair players by not giving them a strong enough platform of individuals. And I don't think we've done a huge amount to correct that, because, as I say, 9 appearances between the 4 of them this season. So they're not ready to simply necessarily go in unless I'm told otherwise. If the fitness guys say, yes, he's great, then I don't know, maybe we have a look and we think about using Enqua in the defensive capacity, because he's got a little bit more height, he's got a bit more range, and he may be good in that specialist position. We will see. But yes, absolutely. Put me forward, and God, could you imagine that? I'd have to be managing the game finishing the game, basically going to Harwoods Road, getting my wife to pick me up, coming back, and then doing this, and then everybody could slag me off even more directly than most people enjoy doing already. I like that. I like that very much. Right, John, I will let you charge off after making me select everything and everyone already. Let's just get Russell in, and then we get through these comments, everybody, and then let you crack on with your evening. Russell, you there, sir?
Yes, I'm here. If you can hear me well.
I'm very well. You're not going to make me pick the team again, are you? Please.
No, I wouldn't.
Thank you. Oh well, how have you been, and how has your deadline day been?
My deadline day's been good. I tried. Me and the Hornet Talk podcast tried to do a deadline day stream. Unfortunately, there was some technical issues, so we had to end it a little bit early. There was a couple of things I wanted to speak about.
Yeah, far away.
One of the things that I wanted to speak about is managers are not getting the players that they want, and it's the players that like Gino Pozzo wants. So when we look at every January is the same, don't you think like this season feels the exact same to last season? And both of our managers were crying out for the exact same type of player, an experienced championship player that can just slot in straight away. He doesn't have to wait for any development. And all he's got is, his first signing was literally a 17-year-old. So, that's one of the points I just want to...
I couldn't agree with you more, and said it a little bit earlier. I don't know how long you've been with us, but I agree completely. My point is, and sorry, when I was working in football, I worked with a director of football. Now, a director of football was somewhat different because they were the entire technical department, and they didn't just be responsible for recruitment of all of the, or taking elements of the manager's job away. What he did, and in my day, and I am talking 20 odd years ago plus here, was he was like the conduit between the footballing department and the board as much as anything. So he took strategy and brought it down and made it tactical as what was going to go on. He tried to make sure that the first team and the reserves and the youth team, which was the structure we had in place at the club at the time, would kind of operate, and players could progress and move on and people be aware. And he would help with all sorts of bits and bobs. It can be a fantastic thing. What we seem to see with us more than any other club mentioned is an antagonism between the head coach and the technical department because of the player profile. Seemingly they'll go to him and say, look, what is it you want to have? And he must give them a profile of the players that they want. And they go, what about this one? And every single time it's going, nope, that's not what I want. And you're ending up with a situation, and I know this has happened with previous managers, and I get the inkling that's exactly what's happened with Javi, where he's gone, no, I want my ones and nobody else. And it's become a contest. It's become basically a battle for supremacy. And frankly, in a Gino Pozzo environment, there's only one winner in that, because he's the one who calls the shots. Are we helping him? Are we supporting him? No, because this is the 4th January transfer window in the Championship alone, where we've all gone, oh, that's the end of the transfer window. Well, that was mainly pointless. And then you get asked questions about, well, who are you going to play? Because, as I said, exactly what you said earlier on, we haven't got the players in with the profile that you would want, with the red match readiness that you might want to have. And I know it's very hard to get them in January, because, as the club has pointed out ad infinitum, and it's absolutely true, anybody who's played lots of games is by definition wanted by their club, and is probably quite happy playing at the moment. So it's very difficult to get those players who are ready at this particular point there. The problem has been even our players who were on the fringes, who now seem to be included, such as Petrus, potentially Duomo, Mendy, both Mendys, because neither Mendy's played very much, even though Nampolis has played far more than Foremost. And there was somebody else, I can't remember now who it was when we were looking at it. They are also in the same boat as the players we're bringing in. They've hardly played, and the other guys are knackered. So, we're going to need to have a good look at them, a good understanding, and hopefully, because they've been in and around the environment, Charlie Daniels, Dan Gosling, Adi Mariappa, all fantastic professionals with fantastic careers behind them, but not so far as to not to be relatable to players of their age. Hopefully they can get into their ears and do something. Sorry, Russ, I banged on for an answer.
No, I completely agree. And it actually pushes me on to my next point. And it's the fact that our transfer business is very similar to someone like Brighton or mainly Brighton, but we do it on a significantly worse scale than what Brighton do. And what I mean by that is we buy players in simply to ship them out. I feel like that's the only reason we've got Eduardo Bov, is because if he does do really well, he's a European talent. He'll go for bigger money. And I feel like that's the reason we bought him in. Not because Javi Gracia wanted him, but because we see profit there. And you could say the same about João Pedro, Yasser Asprilla, Richarlison.
Yeah, of course.
All these players that we've brought in, now we're going to sell for money. Yeah, it's worked, but it hasn't at the same time. Like, it worked for Richarlison because we were in the Premier League. And then the year after we got rid of Richarlison, we stayed in the Premier League. It hasn't worked for Yasser Asprilla. Yeah, we got rid of him to Girona. We were still in the Championship. But how has that money been reinvested into the squad? So, and what I mean...
I think you've made your point brilliantly. I really do. I think that's absolutely spot on. I think for most people, and I would agree with them in this season, most certainly, because I got a bit of a finance background amongst many backgrounds. Sorry, we have, when we were in the Premier League, we built up £138 million of debt, which is solely and wholly unsustainable for a club the size of Watford. Frankly, it was irresponsible, frankly immoral of the ownership of the club to build this debt up on it. And then we got sent, then we had COVID, and then we got relegated not once, but obviously twice straight after. So there is a requirement in the catchment that we've got, which is Watford, on the edge of London, where we're a commuter town. So a lot of people who move out of London, or who might be in and around these parts anyway, may support Chelsea, West Ham, Arsenal, Tottenham, probably also Man City, Liverpool, Man United, all of these. Not everybody who is local will support Watford. It's a good thing in a way, because you can attract players because of the proximity to London, but the proximity of options for people not to attend is massive that the club are contending with. The long short of that is we don't have enough revenue in, because we are not that big a club. So we have to have a player trading model. What I think has gone wrong is the balance has gone out of kilter. Somebody like Bove, when, and I'm sorry, I apologize anybody who's listened to the radio or me talking about this. There is no way Javi Gracia turned around and said, what I want is a box-to-box, an additional midfielder, because what he wanted would have been his choice of left back, his choice of right back. He supposedly didn't want a forward, another midfielder, and another centre back. What he didn't ask for was a player of the class of Bove. We've gone and got Bove, exactly as you said, because there's an opportunity to do it. He could be fantastic. Once he starts playing, we will see. It's all ifs, ands, and maybes at the moment. But he is brought in with a view to being able to sell on in the longer term. The theory, and this is where you have to work to get the balance right, is you want to be acquiring players. It's like any form of investment, any stocks and shares. Buy cheap, sell high. Buy low, sell high, if you possibly can. So you want to bring in players who will be able to acquire value and then be moved on. The problem with the Pozzo model is that focus is almost, not entirely, but almost exclusively on forward players, right? Now, look at the dearth of centre forwards who would previously and who are now worth a fortune. Very hard to get them. But there are an awful lot of players, because of how football has developed, who are either right wingers or number 10s, all in that second row. Just look at our options in those areas. We've had a load of them. The moment we had both Vata for the first injury and Bargo out, suddenly, oh wow, look what we've got here. We've got Marma. Well, Marma was an opportunistic signing in the summer, because he just happened to be available because he'd fallen out at Montpellier and he was available for 200 odd grand, 250, I think it was 200 to 250. But nobody's complaining about that because he's done well. Bove hasn't obviously had a chance yet, so we'll see where he goes. The question is the balance, the level of balance we need to bring in. Shift back to the accounts. We are about to, at some stage, sometime between now and March, we will release our accounts. We didn't sell anybody. We haven't sold anybody of real meaning. We haven't sold a Richarlison or a João Pedro, all of those, or an Asprilla or a Decore, or any of those sort of players. We're going to make a loss. There's no way we are not going to make a loss. I mean, we forecast. Scott Duxbury said, if everything works and everything's on a good day, we would lose 6 million. I imagine Scott Duxbury talks in very, very, what can I say? How can I put it? General terms in that respect. Everything has to go in our direction. Never does everything go in your direction. So we will have lost probably somewhere between 10 and 20 million, I would estimate, because an average club in Championship will lose 24 million a year, right? That's just the average. So we need to get some of it back, but we don't need to be flogging everything and only recruiting just with the resell in mind. We need to make sure that, and it's only sensible to have a good foundation of a team that those sparkling gems, those ones in attack, can go and perform better with. Because you can't tell me that a Bar or an Iran Kunda wouldn't look better with a stronger, balance behind them. But instead, we had Javi panicking about their defensive capabilities. Well, if we were stronger defensively, he wouldn't necessarily have to so much. I appreciate there's more to it than that. So we've got to get that balance right. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, but there is also a finance element that has to flex and has changed because we've fallen out of the Premier League and because of because of COVID as well, because that was another hit. All of these things are there. We've whittled down that debt last time to about 70 million, and about 50 of that was to Gino, and about another 20 odd was what we call factored debt, which is what we owe for ongoing transfer payments to go out. And that was it's a huge improvement in the time that we've been in the Championship with far less money. However, this year we have no parachute payments. This year is going to be really stark and really difficult. So I reckon somewhere between 10 and probably closer to 20 million we will lose. So yes, we need to trade to make sure we make up for that fact that we're not a huge club, but we also need to exactly do what you say. We've got to also build a club at the same time. Otherwise, what's the point as a supporter?
Yeah, exactly. And it just moves me on to like my third and final point.
But
before I go on to that, I'll just say I think Marma wasn't picked up as much in the summer because we actually signed a lot of players, and we brought in Kurmagard, we brought in Semedo. We should have, instead of those two, I would have much rather prefer us just have sold everything for Richard Kone, for who now plays at QPR. But my third and final point is really when we look at a team like Manchester United. I know Manchester United are a big team, but that's not what I'm focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
When Manchester United get talked about in the media, it is now being talked about in the managers that they cycle through. So at the moment, they're kind of on a little circle because they backed a manager and then they sacked that manager. Mm-hmm. They then brought in a caretaker. That caretaker then took over the team. They backed a manager, they sacked a manager. They backed a manager, they sacked him. They've now got a caretaker again.
Yep.
All I'm trying to say is, when you look at someone like, I don't know, let's say Mark Goldbridge, when he talks about Man United, what he brings up is how all these different players aren't for one system. Some of them are for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's system. Some of them are for Erik ten Hag's system, Ruben Amorim's system. So my point is, as Watford, how can we expect certain players to play well for us when they were brought in to play an entirely different system than what they're now probably going to be asked to do?
I think, interesting point. So I was trying to deal with the Man United stuff because there are comparisons to be made in terms of strange things that have gone on. They've obviously had a hangover that's followed for an awful long time following Alex Ferguson, and it often happens at a club when a major manager leaves, and then they've gone into a tailspin of underinvestment in certain areas and mismanagement in others, because it's not like they haven't spent money on them, etc. My belief is as a former coach is that footballers are a lot more versatile than you would think that they might be. The footballers don't tend to be the best judges of where they should play all the time. I'm not saying that you disregard it, but there can be more flexibility. It depends how you put it together. Now, in my day, everybody played 4-4-2. Literally every team that you would come across in domestic football would play 4-4-2. It was just all the time. And it got to the mid 90s, and it was Terry Venables who was the England manager when we had the Euros for the first time in this country, and he swapped and went to basically a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-1-2. And I was fortunate enough to go on a number of coaching things. I go all over the country to go and talk to various and watch them coach in organizational setups. So it was me and a whole bunch of coaches would go trailing all around the place. And one of the ones we went to see was a guy called Don Howe, and Don Howe was a former Arsenal manager, former Arsenal coach, and was the assistant manager and coach for the England team under Terry Venables. And he explained what they did. Now, if you look at that particular team, and the reason I'm calling it out here is because everybody in that team, other than the front two, played in a different place to what they would normally do. Oh, also maybe the one centre back. So instead of playing 4 at the back, he played a 3. And I'm not sitting there saying we need to switch to a 3. That's not the point. My point is about the versatility of players and good quality coaching to make them understand the roles and why you're playing them to that strength. He played a guy called Tony Adams. I'm sorry, I appreciate I'm going back to the dawn of time here. Tony Adams was a colossal Arsenal captain, man mountain of a centre-back, right? Fantastic. He played him in the middle because anything that came down the middle, he had to head it. Either side of him, in a back 3, he played Gary Neville, who you'll know about, obviously, from his media stuff, who was a right back and a fine right back for Manchester United. And he played Stuart Pearce, who was an absolute card-carrying left back. And he played them both as right side and left side centre-backs. And his reason was because if you play with a 3-5-2, the danger in that particular position is the opposition trying to overload you on the wide areas, putting the ball in behind the wing-back, and then basically following in. And what you wanted to make sure was if any one of their centre halves got drawn out, one, those centre halves were confident in that position, because suddenly, if you can imagine a wide ball coming out, a right or a left-sided centre back splitting and going wide, you're sending right backs and left backs out there. They can deal with that with a touch. It's no sweat. That's what they did. But they were playing in a different way. In front of them, rather than a single kind of box-to-box midfield, he played Tom Ince, dad of Paul Ince, dad of Tom Ince, and he played a player called David Batty. Okay, and it was right. You're both going to play here, and you're going to shield off the ball being played into basically into the opposition forwards as much as you can. But I want you to hold. I want you to hold. The wing backs, he played a guy called Steve McManaman, played for Liverpool, out and out winger, went to Real Madrid, fantastic technical player, but by no means was he a right wing back or a left wing back. He played left wing back, sorry, but he was right footed. On the right, he played a player called Darren Anderton, commonly known as Sick Note for Spurs, right, who would play in the middle and maybe as a right wing, not a right wing back at all, coached them into it. In the whole, so this was the third most advanced midfielder, was Paul Gascoigne, who was, this savant-like genius, but flawed individual. I mean, people look at Iran Kunda, you look at Paul Gascoigne, I mean, since he's left, kind of aged out of football, he's worked into a world of problems because his world was football, but he got the absolute best out of him. And in front of them, they had Shearer and a player called Teddy Sheringham. There were so many people playing out of position on that and explaining fundamentally what they were doing and why, and they adapted. And it was the first time since 1966 that England had got through to a semi-final, that particular game. Now, I appreciate that under the much maligned Gareth Southgate, we now look at semi-finals and finals and go, yeah, no, he's still boring, get him out. At that time, it was unheard of to do it. I'm a huge believer in that you can adapt the players that you can. Those that you can't, yes, okay, you have to decide that they're not going to be for you long term, and you have to move them out over 1 or 2 windows. Fundamentally, that's what you've got to do. The difficulty is with us is that we change runners and riders in the managerial position, that we never get to find out what somebody could do after 1 or 2 transfer windows. Look at Arteta. I've said about this before. The Arsenal team he's built over what? 4 or 5 windows. What manager's ever going to get 4 or 5 windows at Watford? It's never going to happen. So it's a complication and a difficulty all round, Russ. It really is. Well done today for being part of that, because the guys at the Hornet Talk podcast went and did it outside again at Vicarage Road, and we're talking about all sorts of things. And there was one time when Caden, because I did watch a bit of it, when he threw to you and asked you why a particular Man City, I think reserve team player, I'm not sure, who'd gone to Middlesbrough, why that didn't work out. And your knowledge was spot on, sir. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done indeed. Technical difficulties because you guys are trying to push the envelope, and well done for doing so. Well done indeed. Russell, I'm going to let you go so that I can have a quick chat with Greg Wendover, who's been waiting there, and then we will get, by hook or by crook, we'll get into these YouTube comments. Everybody, we certainly will. Thank you, Russ, and lovely to see you the other week, by the way, with your parents. It was really nice. Let's get in, Greg. Now, Greg's not been happy with the transfer window as it's been moving through. Greg, we've got somebody in at the end. How are you feeling about it all over?
Yeah, it is what it is, Pete. It is what it is. Pete, I just really wanted to make you aware that since you've been on, Javi's released a statement that you might want to have a look at.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord, everybody. Right, let's have a quick look for that and where I might find that. Dum-da-dum-da-dum. Everybody wait for it. We'll find it. You've all probably already know it. Well, this will be interesting because I did wonder, your friend of mine, Ron, said about, well, I would hope that he would be able to make a statement because Watford have put out, I say Watford, the Watford Observer have put out a very one-sided article. There, let me see, inside story, club statement, Javi Gracia. Open to return. No, that's any idea where he's made the statement?
Yeah, it's there's extracts from it through Adam Drury on the Watford Observer.
Okay.
And I could put in the chat but I don't. It's in Spanish, of course.
Okay. Yeah, no challenges here. That's fine. I could no longer contribute with full conviction. Here we go.
Here it is. Mikey's got it. See if I can copy and paste this.
Where are you pasting it?
In the chat here. I'll put it.
Okay. And then I will go to the chat and we'll go into that first of all, because that sounds fascinating for everybody.
It's too big to put it in the chat.
Yeah, we've heard all of that before. Too big to fit in the slot, of course.
Let me WhatsApp it to you, Pete. Hold on, stay there.
Okay.
Stay there.
I'll stay here. I'm staying here, everybody. While you're doing that, let's have a quick look at a couple of comments. Only 9 more signings and we'll have the Georgia national team, says Ian Hiles. Ian, quality comment. Well done. More Georgians. That's what we need to do. Mate. Right. Okay, let's go there. And let's have a read of this. See where it would be. Greg Thieker, look at this. Here we go. Farewell letter from Javi Gracia as Watford manager. After deep and honest reflection, I have made the decision to voluntarily resign from my position as head coach of Watford FC. Out of responsibility and personal integrity, I consider it most honest not to continue with a project in which I could no longer contribute with full conviction. Despite this, Watford FC is and will always be a very special club for me. I will be deeply grateful for the trust placed in me during the 2 spells in which I had the privilege of leading the team. Both the institution and its fans have always made me feel at home. Vicarage Road will forever hold an important place in my heart and in that of my family. I would also like to highlight the group of players, a young squad with enormous potential for growth. I am proud to have worked with them and to have accompanied them during this stage of their development. I hope I have been able to contribute my small grain of sand in their evolution as footballers and as people. I also want to express my most sincere thanks to all the staff and to every person who works day to day at the club. From the very first moment, they have treated me with extraordinary warmth and closeness and making me feel part of a true family. Their professionalism and human quality have been fundamental in my daily work, and I will always carry them with me. I am convinced that this team has a great future and will continue to grow, fighting for ambitious objectives. I wish Watford FC the greatest success on the road ahead. I will always continue to support and wish the best for the club. Javi Gracia. Thank you for that, Greg. Appreciate that. There you go. That's what he said. I'm going to be completely and utterly cynical and say there's an NDA behind that.
Yeah.
because I know an awful lot more whereby a lot of stuff where he's not been, frankly. And there have been bits that are absolutely down to him, and he's been in some ways too stubborn by half in many ways. But he was sticking out for what he thought was right, and he didn't get a number of supports in there, which is a shame. But I've said before, when Gianfranco Zola left. Sorry, Russell, you have to. I'm sure you will know of Gianfranco Zola, but that was back in what, 2013. He resigned with more class than a number of his predecessors managed the whole time they were here, and I would suggest that Javi Gracia has done the same. There will be a number of people who will be saying, actually, what we would have liked to have heard was what was actually going on. What made you decide to do that? Because there were internal frustrations. And there will be no end of different tales of this. I am sure we will see, but I think we can say Javi Gracia has been a classy individual, and I don't think he's been treated as well inside the club as he potentially could have, as he potentially might have liked to, notwithstanding the fact that at some points, he's been stubborn. He has been stubborn about changing his position in terms of his formation. He has been stubborn in terms of some of the names mentioned, which were Harry Amas. There was obviously the Julio Soler. There was also, and this is just for the left back position, and there was also Zamora, who we'd coveted about 3 years ago when he first moved to Udinese from Bournemouth, if you recall, because when we were at one of the, I think it was at Parlaci. And there was Giaretta, yes, blue butterfly man, if you remember Giaretta, everybody. And he was saying, there are a number of players currently at Udinese who think they want to play Serie A, but they probably won't get the chance to, and they might be prepared to move. Festi Ebicelli was one of them, and we eventually got him for a bit. He's gone to Wrexham. He's gone to Wrexham. Yeah, which is interesting. I think he was a player again who didn't. The club doesn't treat people very well on a lot of people, not very well. I'm sure there are individuals that it treats very well indeed, but on some occasions it doesn't, and that's a great shame.
What I don't get with the Zamora one, Pete.
Yeah.
Say Javi has turned him down earlier on in the window.
Why hasn't he been brought in now?
Why didn't they bring him in today? Because they needed a left back. They could have done it easily. The medical could have. Well, it doesn't need a medical. He's on the payroll.
The suggestion, the things that I'd heard, I can't quite remember because it's been a busy old day in aggregate where everybody had put this. So if this is you quoting it, thank you very much indeed. Apologies, I can't credit you with it. Was the points that were made was that Hassan Kamara, who's been the left back, has got injured, and therefore now he's needed. At the time, it may not have been the case. So it the footballers' positions and whether or not they're wanted or not can change by the day. And the suggestion was that Zamora might be playing. I think it was left wing back against Roma tonight. No idea how that's going at the moment. But it'd be interesting to see. But yes, theoretically, you would think that would be the case. However, Javi didn't want him. Javi definitely didn't want. Sorry, Gary, I've forgotten what his name is. Our newest Georgian, who I'll get to in a minute. He didn't want him, and then he did because there was nobody. It was like, well, there's no other options there because people are other. We're not the only runners in town here. We're not the only game in town.
Why did it want a championship experienced left back that has got a championship promotion under his belt, where he played most of the. Well, he was their left back throughout that season.
Yeah, Bournemouth. He was, but I think it became more of a no. I don't want him because I don't want him because I want the person I've said, and this has happened with previous managers. We know who have said no. I want who I want, and there might have been very good names mentioned by that manager. It doesn't necessarily mean the club did or didn't have those players lined up.
Javi wanted, do we?
No. I've got no idea. I do know with, for example, with Ishmael, he could have potentially had in. I forget the name. There was a Chelsea player who's done all right, but I can't remember what his name is now. It was a Brazilian lad, potentially was able to come in, and the other one was potentially trying to do a deal to bring in Kiefer Moore for the end of that particular season.
Yeah.
And we'd sold I can't remember what his name is now for the life of me. When we beat Blackburn away, we were losing 1-0. Rajovic got one, and then the lad who we eventually sold him to Huddersfield got the other goal. I can't remember what his name was.
Reese something.
I can't, yeah, whatever.
And a long throw on him that we were amazing.
Yeah, that was it. We basically sold him to them for about $1.5 million, and my understanding was that would have paid for the basically
Reece Healy,
lovely.
Reece Healy,
that was planned for that, but he didn't want him because it wasn't the player he had wanted, and therefore, I think it's very easy to take barks at the club, and I will do it on a regular basis and continue to do so. So there. However, there are times when you look at that and go, well, why couldn't you have made that work? Because you remember what happened with in that particular window in the end. What happened with Kiefer Moore? He went from Cardiff, I think it was at Cardiff, and he went to Ipswich, and he scored 7 goals to help them get up.
Yeah.
Frankly, if that could have been done, that might have been something. Who knows?
But moving the conversation on, Pete.
Go on in.
Next cab of the rank. Obviously, one name mentioned. I know what you're going to say, but on the names on the list, one that popped out to me was John Dale Thomason. He had a good spell at Blackburn, working under a very difficult ownership, i.e., he would be coming to another one.
The Venkies, yeah, absolutely.
That name is interesting.
I think it is. We have, because of obviously what we do, and we get to talk to opposition view. Like I played a bit from Sunderland earlier on. Ian Herbert of 4,000 Holes, which is the Blackburn podcast. Yeah, he said the same thing. He thought the world of John Dale Thomason, and he said he had standards, and he tried to drive us single-handedly. And I think they got to for about something like 6 minutes last year. They were in the playoff positions on the last day, but it didn't make it. And then you can see what's happened. But he was the only person trying to do that. I think whoever it comes in. I was asked this earlier on, and we'll put these recordings, because we were on Three Counties Radio today, and we were on and I was on TalkSport too with some of the guys. So we'll put those out so you can hear. And I was asked by what's his name, Hugh Woozencroft, the guy who does the ITV Sports, the highlights of the EFL stuff. Not very.
Take your word for it. Never heard of him.
Very nice chap. You'd recognise him if he was on the EFL Sports. Other than that, you wouldn't pick him out in an ID parade, trust me. But a nice guy nonetheless. And he said, well, like turning to the runners and the riders, in first place is Will Still, in second place is Marty Cifuentes, and in third place is Russell Martin. And of course, after my heart de-iced after hearing the word Russell Martin, and oh God, can you imagine? I'd be imploding if that happened, just out of pure hypocrisy. If he did well, who knows? And he said, what would that work? And my point was, well, the question that you're asking realistically is, if you changed the string quartet on the Titanic, would things have been better? And the answer is no. You're still on an unstable platform, and there's icebergs everywhere, because that's what Watford is. Fundamentally, if there was, and it's not even an organisational alignment, it's bordering on a spiritual alignment. It's just do the right thing. Work together to try to make the manager a success, rather than having to do everything diametrically in opposition to what they want. Work with each other to build a bond of trust and appreciation, because there is no trust or appreciation when you go through 25 managers in 12 years. That is fundamentally what is missing, and it's missing from both sides. Because Watford now, we tend to look at it and go, and we've said for so long, and Duxbury said it, and again, I say this on TalkSport, that when you recruit a head coach or a manager, only two things are going to happen. He's going to succeed or he's going to fail. And if he succeeds, then count to a pinch of shit, Everton will want to sign him. You know, somebody will come along to have him, and it's always bloody Everton. Let's be honest. Will want to come and have him, and he'll be away, and his eyes, you know, his head will be turned exactly the Marco Silva position. And this was said before Marco Silva, and he's not been wrong. He said, but then if they fail, you want to get them sort of out again. So what we don't want is to have a manager in the old school, because back in the 90s, and you know, a Graham Taylor would run the entire club from top to bottom. Alex Ferguson ran the club from top to bottom. But look what has happened, exactly as Russell was talking about earlier on. Look what happened when they ripped, but you know, when he left, they didn't rip the soul out of anything. They took him out, and it was like, well, Christ, there's all of this going on. How do we keep this rolling? The answer is you don't, because you've lost it fundamentally. So there's an understanding of why they're trying to do it. Fundamentally, you've got to have a director of football or a technical director or a sporting director, or what have you, who are actually working with the coach and with the coach's best interests at heart. At the moment in modern football, you have agents who are working for their own reasons, for their own financial reasons, for their own clients' sporting best career, because that also is linked to the money that they will get. You've got sporting directors competing. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's infighting in that club all the time politically, and there has been for years, and I'm sure there is in almost every club. And when you look at the amount of money that goes through it, it's probably, you know, it's kind of filthy lucre corrupting again. It's a shame, but fundamentally, to increase the value of the players and increase, yes, the valuation of the club, would be to have it performing well. What we have at the moment is exactly as Russell was mentioning earlier on. We have an imbalance towards going, well, we're trying to make sure we're creating these players that we can do and that we can sell. And in fairness to the club, it's got to be said, they haven't sold any this year. We didn't sell Loser. We didn't sell Chak Fatadza because he was injured. Otherwise, I think he would have been out of the door, because people would have come in for him at that point. I think Wolves were very, very keen on him. So happenstance, what have you, giving it a go. The club always said, we want to challenge for promotion, but the key word is challenge. It's not like they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, although who knows. But without making those sales, we're going to be looking at a finance situation that is not that is worse than it would have been had we sold people on. We've got to find a way that is a balance between developing players for sale and looking and bringing in the next ones through. Now, I appreciate not everybody will have listened to my inane ramblings talking about every accounting period, but the year prior to us, literally the year, it was weeks before we bought Doumbia. So that was only about a year or so ago. My concern was the money were going in the right direction. The debt was coming down. Things were looking not so bad. And that's a good thing. But we had stopped putting players on that conveyor belt at the start to build them up and to build them up and to build them up. And about a week and a half, something like that later, it was in February, Doumbia turned 18. 2 days later, we signed him. And he didn't come in until the July, but we'd signed him. And it was like, right, that's why the next one wasn't ready. You now look through our team on our squad. And in terms of having players to be able to flip and turn, if we get firing, it's immense. Marma is fantastic. We've seen suggestions today that Lille and Nantes have made suggestions. Well, this is no. This is what has been reported. Whether or not that was reported, because Nantes, as everybody may or may not know, is highly connected to Modji Bayat. So if the narrative was going to be, well, look what we've turned down. Well, if it came from Nantes, it was done by Modji anyway. My only bit back on that is I don't think he's got anything to do with Lille. So if that was genuine, maybe there is. That's not the point I'm making here. That's not the point I'm making here. The point I'm trying to make is, you look at it. You've got, when fit, you've got Vata, you've got Bar, you've got Iran Kunda, you've got Marma. There alone are potential players who can really kick on elsewhere and will have interest. We have got an awful lot in the stock taking department in where we are at the moment. What we don't have at the moment is a reliable enough platform for them to perform Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, as the old phrase will go. And that's, I think, where we need to get the balance right. And for that, we need to have a steady, what everybody has wanted and asked for repeatedly, but it never comes back. Fundamentally, the owner has to basically decide he's going to back a manager one way or another to support him, because otherwise we never get to, exactly as I've said with Arteta, building a team over, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 transfer windows, because we are never, we've got the average tactical acumen of a blue bottle who's spinning one way and then turning and going off in a different direction all the time.
Let's hope, Peter, they select a head coach that fits the players that we've got.
Fingers crossed.
Which is what I said yesterday. With Thomason, I think what you say about him being used to avoiding icebergs. Well, if he's got the experience of that already, he'll be coming to the right place.
But there was this saying in I can't remember if it was in the Watford Observer thing or I'm sure it was in the Watford Observer thing, which was saying about these internal issues. Had Javi been 2019, he would have been able to deal with these issues. And it was like, well, fundamentally, take the issue, try not to create issues and barriers and hurdles for your head coach. And they do. It's been known. It's absolutely been recorded about Nani walking in on managers and telling them who to play.
Well, they almost said,
and they need to stop it. They need to decide who they're going to go on.
Didn't they? Javi was too comfortable in not so many words. Well, each time Jose Mourinho takes a job, he's not poverty stricken when he's taken that job. He's taken that job because he wants that job.
That article, and I'm Adam Drury, more than happy to have a. I'm sorry, I'm Adam Drury. If you want to have a chat at some point, absolutely happy to. But that was such a one-sided article; it was frightening, and it was frankly beneath what you would expect from an Ollie Phillips. It was Pravda writ large. Sorry, it simply was, because it was insider led. So we know exactly where that will have come from, and nobody's stupid. They'll read these things and understand it. They'll know exactly what's being said, and it's all put out one way. So anyway, we've had a very honourable man. He's left yesterday. We don't know quite where we are, but we've gone through the window today. Whether or not we're stronger, whether we're weaker, that's down for you to decide. Absolutely. But thank you very much for letting me know about that.
It'll be in the eating, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. It will.
Good night, mate.
All right, mate. Thank you, sir. Really, really appreciate you letting us know on all of that. Oh, it's not there. Oh, there we go. Yes, I don't want to remove you. You're quite right. There we go. Oh, it's been a longer one than I thought it was going to be, but never mind. Thank you very much for being with us. Let's finish up with the Carl Wilson said so. 4 players in with a total of 9 games between them. Absolutely agree wholeheartedly. West London Hornet says, did we really expect anything else in this window? Having worked in the predictive sciences, if you will, for want of a better phrase, which is what a lot of these things, a lot of the things that I've been working in. The answer is no, because nothing predicts future performance like past performance. You look back at the last 3 January transfer windows, and they've been underwhelming in terms of what's been felt from the supporters and indeed the management as to what it sort of needs at the time. And the group that have been out of line with that has been the club. The club will quite rightly have a different take on it and say, well, yeah, no, everybody would love to have whoever, but that's not who we are. That's not the money we have. So we can wish all we want, but it would be really nice to have a couple of windows side by side that feel like we're all on the same page. And the bits that get across, I think they've done it much better this year ironically with Valon Barami sitting with Javi Gracia in the pre-match conferences when they've been running. They don't tend to run on 3-game weeks in terms of saying what they're trying to do and what they're doing. But so much was focused on Bove. We saw Javi's reaction when asked about Bove. I'm not interested in Bove. I'm only interested in the players I can work with now. That was not the ringing, lovely endorsement that we saw from the letter from him. But I thank him for the letter, because I hope Watford does mean something to him in the same way as I do. I hope it means something for everybody who's been at Watford, with the exception of Roy Hodgson and Moussa Sissoko, otherwise known as Cisco. Right, let's get on with it. OJ says, well, we got what was announced. Still quite underwhelming. Birmingham have a full new squad. Yeah, this is the other thing. What's been going on in the rest of the championship, all around. Like it or not, says HDay 2025. Morris, Sissoko, Wiley out, and sadly Elaine out. But Mafuni, Saba, Enkwa, and Bove in. We have got stronger this January. I think Wiley it was absolutely pointless because, of course, he was constantly injured. That's not a bad thing. But Elaine seemed so fundamental to what we had, and there was no immediate response or replacement for him. Who we've got in now, if for example, Mendy wasn't being used, foremost Mendy, I have to say, and if he's back in tow and if he can step up and step through, then who knows? We will see. But I get your point. Lovely stuff. Whether it is the right players, not a striker other than Elaine, should be better players coming in. Thank you. Absolutely agree. Next time, I do apologise, HJ. I will read everything rather than just start saying what you're about to say very well. Now we have Chakva and Chidza. Ooh, Chakva and Chidza. That's going to help me a lot. And can you imagine? I think Derek Payne would pay real money to be able to say those things. I like it. Ben B6N3L says, is Enkwa thing happening then? Yes, apparently it is official. It has gone through. It was one of those ones that didn't get posted before 7 o'clock, but the deal sheet has gone through. Deal sheets were able to be submitted to, I presume, the the EFL or the FA or whichever one it is. And by all accounts, he seems to be in. Wonky Donkey 1980 says, our season will just fall off a cliff. Javi sucked the life out of us. If we could have beaten Sheffield Wednesday and Pompey at home, both very winnable, he says. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. They were. We've got to have a coach who will play in the way that the squad is sort of built, but it's built sort of top heavy, for the reasons that we've already discussed ad nauseum. Pretty decent last-minute deal to cover Cipriano, if so. Well, you may have heard what Ant said. He said sometimes he was good. He had a good spell, and he was all right. He's a bit lazy. He's not crap, he said, or he's not shit, he said. But if he gets a kick up the arse, he can do pretty good things. So fingers crossed. He did, he said, for a few games in the run-in to their first playoff run, he said that he was our best player for a while. So potentially it's there. Evening, but Evening, Mark, how are you doing, sir? Wonky Donkey basically says also, Javi has totally blown our chances off, playoff chances. Draws against Sheffield Wednesday, Pompey and Blackburn. We should have got at least 6 points out of those and would be in the playoffs now. Good riddance, he says. I think that feels harsh to me. Not because of what you're saying is wrong. I find it hard to be as dismissive as some are of Javi. He and I appreciate this is the other end of the coin that you're mentioning here. 3 defeats in 17. But this is fundamentally, I think, the problem that you're getting to. He was trying to avoid defeat rather than trying to win games. And those games were close margins. Sheffield Wednesday, frankly, we were grateful for a point because we were fucking shocking. And we only got the goal at the end through Semedo. We could have lost that completely. Pompey, yes. You could also say Pompey down at their place was a point given away as well. And Blackburn was just weird and symptomatic of, I think, what's gone wrong here. Was the moment we lost the goal, we just went to pieces. See us in the 55th minute against Swansea, conceded a goal, went to pieces again. Absolutely. So no, like those. Ian Hart says, wasn't it Nathaniel Chalabar, not Daniel, or did I hear that wrong? No, it was Nathaniel Chalabar. Did I call him Daniel? I often listen back to some of these things and think, hold on, I didn't mean that. I meant that other word. So I apologise, everybody. You are indeed charting my mental acuity declining at an ever rapid rate. Ben comes back. He says, I hear Enkwa believes he is a free agent following St Etienne's relegation. Ongoing legal dispute. If we loan him and the legal thing is resolved, we could pick him up for free. Well, is that the reason why he hasn't played all season then? That could be a very interesting. The question then goes, if he was with St Etienne and he's in their transfer marked squad, has he been training with them? Because in a funny way, if he's been training with them, he's likely to be closer to fitness than if he's not been training whatsoever. You would hope that obviously we've been keeping fit. But Ben, that's a great point. Thank you. Buzzing Hornet says, do you think we will look at the free agent market? I don't know. I'll see you and I'll raise you a Bakuna. It really depends what's there and what's available. So I think I'll have to take a look at that and see. Could we? There's always a possibility we have done it before, but have we done it to really good effect? Not sure. The problem about looking in the free agent market in January is that most of those guys have been exactly as I was talking about there with Enqua. They've been free agents since August. So who have they been training with? That's my issue with that. I'd rather go for a free agent in September than in February, if that makes sense. Mark says, I wonder if the new players will feature tomorrow. Are they all eligible even? Probably not the last ones, because you normally have to sign them, I think, by 1 o'clock the day before the game in order to qualify. So the ones who signed today, I doubt it, but I don't know. We'll see. However, in a way, where we are fortunate, and I know we saw that Petrus and I think Mendy were, going up to Hull to be in with the group again. So yeah, they certainly are. So there are some fresh players who've not been in and around the squad who could potentially be used, depending on what Charlie, what Dan, and what AD Mariappa think. Wonky Donkey says, I actually can't see us getting anything out of Hull tomorrow. Sod's Law, they were weakened when we went up there. We were on a run. It got called off through very strange circumstances, shall we say, and certainly very avoidable circumstances. And I appreciate, depending on if you support Hull or Watford, you'll look at this through different ends of the telescope. But that, they've now gone on a fantastic run since then. No idea what their injury situation was, but I know the first 2 games, a lot of them were saying, well, we've just won these with the injuries anyway, so it wouldn't have made a difference. We'll see. It's a difficult place to go. We will see whether or not we get a new manager's plural bounce. Who knows? Paul Goss says Ericsson had to leave Italy for the same reason. Yeah, absolutely. And went to play for Man United. Entirely. And that's what that sort of thing is obviously what we're hoping for. He had a short stint, but it was a very small contract, or a very short contract at Brentford. First of all, performed very well. We did great stuff for them, and then he got his move to Man U, as you say. Mark's come back again. He says, assuming Pollock is still out, I would bring in the Georgian centre back for Kevin, who has been poor. Hopefully, the other 2 will be on the bench. Maybe so. We were talking specifically about Derby, which, if I think about it, we've got obviously Hull, and on Saturday we've got Southampton, and then we've got Derby, haven't we? So they should have time enough to take a look at them. And if he's ready, then yeah, absolutely put him in. He's looked, but the bits that I've seen have looked all right. But as I said earlier on, most teams or most players look all right in their own show reels. Ian says, the fact Bove on signing day wearing a suit and tie and looking the part shows class and quality. I could not agree with you more. The thing that's come back is he's got standards. So, and I could give you some cases, but I don't want to betray who at the club has let us know. But it's not a bad thing at all. He comes across as the real deal, seemingly. Mark says, I hope Daniels and Goslings play 4-2-3-1 with Doon. Okay, well, yeah, with Doumbia. I think that's the way to go. I think a number of people were saying that around the online area of Watford, support, saying, 4-4-2 is too rigid. Give us a 4-2-3-1. And it's quite often out of necessity that tactical innovation comes into play, and it seemed to. And we had that run. According to the Watford Observer part, there were other things that were coming into play because Javi Grazia's family was here, so he was all happy. I'm not sure that really plays a bundle of things into it, but who knows what other invisible factors get to be played into and affect these things the longer you go through. It's a strange old world. None of these signings really say we want promotion. That's true. It doesn't feel it, and to be doing all of this late on feels problematic. However, how much of that sits with Javi and how much of it sits with the club, we'll see. However, the one thing we can say is this problem has not just been here with Javi, it's been there previously. So sorry, club. The common denominator is it's on you, because it's time and time and time again. And you could say we've got unrealistic expectations, but that's the case. We are stronger, but not enough. Too little championship experience, says OJ. He also says, is there any free transfers we should get? I mean, we saved a lot with sending off Sissoko. Yeah, well, this is it. The other way to look at this particular window has been the fact that the top earner on £45,000 a week, if you wish to believe Capology, which I've seen no reason not to, is Moussa Sissoko, who was not earning or was not giving 45 grand's worth of value each day. So he's gone out there. So a reduction in the wage bill is there. However, as I've just said, The finances are there. 45 grand reduction might help that in the longer term. It might allow us to stockpile a bit of money away in the, to do something in the summer. However, as many people have pointed out, the championship looks like it'll be stronger next year because it feels particularly tepid this year. The window has closed, says Mark. Thank you for that. OJ says we can still fetch free players. Yeah, absolutely. The free market, we will see. Yeah, they're having a chat there. Wonky Donkey says Bar will be over the moon that Javi is gone. What's the betting he gets to start tomorrow? Well, I was asked and I said, yeah, I'd start him. I'd challenge him. Don't get, but you're giving somebody something, you want something in return. Everything in life is an exchange and a negotiation. This is his chance. Every time a manager leaves, the next manager needs to walk in there and say, because most times the manager swap has not gone particularly well in this particular instance, if you're going to go to the player and say, prove to them, prove to the fans, the ones who were chanting Bar will tear you apart, even though frankly you've done very, very little since what, QPR game? Was it the QPR game? Can't remember. Whichever one he was doing those cutbacks with. He hasn't had much opportunity to go and show them that it was him and not you. Go and show him what you can do, and you challenge him and see if he reacts. If he reacts, brilliant. If he doesn't, we're no further behind or forward than we were before. Yeah, of course, free agents are having a big chat on there. Lovely stuff. Adam Messina now a free transfer. I did hear as Adam Messina's name in the mix for that, looking at a left back and as left centre half at one stage, but my understanding is he was another one that Javi didn't want to bring in. Obviously, I think if we'd have bought in and said, "Here we go, we've got Adam Messina," there would have been a lot of people who'd have gone, "Oh my God, we've had him before, don't have him again," all of that sort of stuff. So there's a certain level if you can't win. Odio Nagalo is a free agent, says OJ. Oh, wow, we are going back to all our yesterdays. Let's not stop there. Let's go and have Luther. Thought Nestri would be back for Derby. He only misses 3 matches, which are the next 3 away matches. Oh, okay, if he's back in for that one. I'm trying to think. I haven't got the fixture list in front of me, as I do with the prediction league. So fair enough. If he's back, great. Oh, Hull, thank you very much, OJ. Hull, Southampton, Preston. Oh, well, look at that. I mean, let's face it. When he comes back, he's going to be nice and fresh. Missing out going to Hull, Southampton. Nothing wrong with Southampton and Preston, but fair trips. All the next how many points? Yeah, well, we'll see about that. Pete, do you fancy a crack at the head coach job? Thanks, Gary. I don't think it's going to be coming anytime soon, and I'm not surprised with that. We could do with a modern day John McClelland. Yes, and Steve Sims, not half. Absolutely. Well, I'd see that. The other day I was asked to give my best Watford team, and I put in John McClelland, and out because I went with so many things from the 80s, I decided, no, I'm going to break with it. And I decided to put in Jay Demerit because of the story and everything else. And I got to the end of it and went, oh God, I haven't put in Ian Bolton. Well, fans of a certain age will remember Ian Bolton as oh, wow. And he played alongside Steve Sims as well. Hopeless, he says, we will make a loss. But what about 6 million we are reported to be getting for Asprilla moving on? Yeah, could go into it, but it won't go into this financial accounts. When they release the finance accounts, they are for the period basically between 1st of July 2024 and the end of June 2025. So that will factor into next year's accounts because they're always retrospective looking back. But yes, that will all things will help going into the pot, undoubtedly, Mark. But that anything that we're getting in now isn't really going to make a difference. Had we made the sale as we've done previously, if you remember, we sold. Let me try and remember who it was. Yeah, it was Asprilla, in fairness, actually, as well as JP Yao Pedro. We sold them with a couple of games still to go. That was so that it would get into that finance year in terms of the accounting procedure. So, yeah. Hi, mate, unrelated. But do you know if you buy tickets for away games the day prior, you need to go to the ticket office on the Vic Road to collect? I would go to, if it was me, I doubt the office might at Vicarage Road will probably be open. Go down Occupation Road in Old Money, now Yellow Brick Road, and in behind the Rookery on that side, very close to Yellow Brick Road, is the main ticket office, and that'd probably be where you'd need to go, I would suggest. But yeah, obviously, if you're on Vicarage Road, check there first. If it's not, then go down the Yellow Brick Road, and it's just into the right. It's only about 20-30 yards in, if that. Hi, mate, unrelated, but do you know if you buy away tickets? Yeah, we're back to that. Thank you, Stephen. Bilic taking over over Blackburn. Is this worth a note? It is interesting. As somebody, I think it was Tom Bodell said, does this of the Buzz podcast said that this probably means that Blackburn are a couple of years away from appointing Yavi, because they do seem to be basically following us, aren't they? Ishmael and then Bilic, and then, or maybe they're working it in backwards. I don't know. Maybe they're going to sign I know Reece Healy. Thank you very much. They're not going to sign Reece Healy. There will be a few managers wanting the job, as they will get a decent payout after a few months when they get sacked. This is the problem. This is fundamentally the problem of doing this constant change. I was asked again by TalkSport today, and listen to it if you want to, will this affect Yavi's legacy? And I turned around and said no, because not being daft, you guys, the guys at TalkSport, what do you think when Watford fire a manager? You all go, oh, well, that it's just Watford, isn't it? So how does that affect his legacy? At Watford, I think everybody should remember him for the things that he did do. He did take us to 11th. Was it perfect? No. The year of the cup final, the cup run papered over a myriad of cracks. And, the club were well aware of that. Should they have sacked him after the cup final and made a change? In hindsight, yes, but hindsight is 2020. Well, there'll be a few managers. Yeah, absolutely. Only one thing for certain: the one coming in will be served a 3-year contract, almost undoubtedly. Hull fans online now fearing Watford will get a new manager bounce. Well, managers, plural, manager bounces. Who knows? Do you think we see Nicolas Ciccovani before the end of the season? I very much doubt it, personally, because he's a tricky winger. We've got lots of those. He was at Charleroi on loan. He did not get a sniff. He's come back and he's going to be playing under 21 football fundamentally at this moment in time. I think he's got a development point, but people go through a development point and almost like growing pains. It comes and it goes. You suddenly see a change. I doubt if he will be, because I think he would have got somewhere before with Charleroi, but it didn't happen. But there we go. Anyway, you lovely people, it is now 11:05, and I'm deciding I will bring these proceedings to a close. We've got some players in. We need to support them inside the ground. That doesn't mean that you have to loathe, hate, or feel anything towards the owner. Me personally, I think it's the sooner we get a change of regime. Personally, I think we feel like we're ready for that. I think the owner feels probably ready for that. However, the catch-22 in this particular case is he wants a certain amount of money for his investment, and that's investment of time and money, and he owns the place and therefore he wants to get it back. But he is asking at this moment in time seemingly unrealistic figures for a championship club with no parachute payments committed to it. Should we go up, we are then sitting there with not only a year's worth of Premier League money and TV revenue, we are looking at a minimum of 2 years of parachute money. If you stay up for a year, you're looking at 3 years of parachute money. So the irony is, it's difficult to get the money and the plan to get up, but once you're up, we should be infinitely more sellable, because there will be more buyers who are prepared to put their hand in their pocket for a Premier League side. Irony upon irony is, of course, as the valuation changes, so does his valuation, because the projections of the earnings that the club will be earning as a legal entity will go up again. But the chances are it would improve. It feels like he's looking for an opportunity and a way out at some stage, and he's been looking for investment. And investment has been, whether or not it's a percentage of something being bought in, or if it's a wholesale buyout, I don't think he's adverse to either. I think everybody is probably ready now. I think feeling a little tired and a little bit weary that we've been doing this dance for years and years and years. We had 7 years of abundance, so to speak. He says, tearing out the plot line to Joseph in his Technicolor Dreamcoat, and then we're in famine effectively, in terms of the amount that's now coming in, because the parachute payments are finished. The payments aren't there. We don't have the TV revenue. It's a very, very hard financial climate out there. AI is pinching on all sorts of things. What's going on in the world is making an energy crisis and a cost of living crisis for fans to be able to go. There is no end of things making it difficult to run a championship football club. Get the jump one up, then something changes. Do I want to go and watch Premier League football? No, I'd much rather watch Championship football. But I'd rather watch Championship football where, and I'm quoting the aforementioned Ian Herbert here, who talked about the Venkies. He said, I want to have somebody who I feel shares the experience, who bleeds Blackburn. I'm not sure. I think he desperately wants Watford to go to do well, but it's like everything else with the balance of everything. Do we have the empathy with him? I'm not sure we do anymore. Not sure we do. Look, it's a late one. It's finished. It's closed. Finally, we will all start looking at free markets and seeing what happens. And we will back here again tomorrow, probably slightly shorter, hopefully, after whatever happens at Hull, come win, lose or draw. We'll be here to find out what your initial reactions are to that, because it's not a question of it's not just a question of being kind of what's the phrase, cathartic or being or just being kind of emotional about it. It's about how are you after that game, because that's when you're more likely to talk about it. So that's what we're here to do, and we're here to share with you whatever it is that you think, whatever you think after the game. That's the ideal. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it. Anyway, guys, good night. You Warns.